on, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Viall Files Bachelorette Recap Edition. We're talking fantasy suites. Allie and Amanda are with me, and the one, the only, Cathy Kelley returns.
I'm here.
So good to have you.
Halfway through your book, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I've read half of it, and
What do you think?
It's great. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Got some good analogies in there. Some good food analogies.
Some good food analogies. Try to make it basic. Yeah, they have the hard copy. Pre-order is available. I'm not going to give you the hard sell on the Bachelorette episodes, but if you want to pre-order it, I really think it's good. And for my critics out there, if you want to hate read it and try to,
Buy a copy to burn.
Yeah, it's fine. I really think you'll be annoyingly surprised. It's available. Link in bio.
It's a big deal. Congrats on writing that.
Yeah, I actually wrote it.
Yeah, no ghostwriter. That's impressive.
I had what they call a book doctor who helped me
An
organize.
editor, yeah.
Yeah, no, I wrote it.
To actually
and then
take the time to edit
and
that.
then we help, because I wrote it in sections. I talked about situationships, and then I talked about
it goes chapter by chapter.
Yeah, and then afterwards it was like putting a puzzle together, and they helped me with the organization of the book. I was like, I got all these pages.
But it's literally like talking to you. It's like getting advice as if you were there. So
yeah. So you liked it?
Mm-hmm.
It was good?
Yes.
Wasn't a total waste of your time?
No.
Okay.
I enjoyed the read.
She's clearly halfway through. She would have stopped after a page.
I don't know. But pre-order now. I'd really appreciate it. Everyone out there. Some anecdotal stories about my life and whatevs. Anyway, lots to talk about. Cathy, I'm glad you are with us for this one.
Oh my
There's
gosh.
so much to get into.
These episodes are a doozy. My brain feels melty afterwards.
We finally at least have something good to talk about, though. It's the first really meaty episode of the season, I think.
Yeah.
But before we do, there's some tea. I think we just burn right through it. Congratulations, Amanda Stanton, for getting married. Hannah Brown has a new sister-in-law.
Yes, she does.
Does she follow her on Instagram yet?
They do not follow
She
each
doesn't
other.
follow her on Instagram yet.
No, and what I found interesting is in her post, she posted a carousel of photos from the wedding. First one was of her and her brother. The rest were her and her boyfriend Adam. A video of her dancing with her dad. Photos of her with her mom. None
Of
the sister-in-law.
None.
And she wasn't in the bridal party because I went and stalked the sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Hannah was not in the bridal party.
No shit.
But I'm like, siblings? Is that not just kind of no matter what your status is, and that not kind of like a hall pass?
No.
I feel like that's, if you have space in the bridal party, the nice thing to do is to put your partner's siblings
Yeah.
in there.
My grandma
I have
always
10
says,
siblings, so
But my grandma Joanne always says, doesn't matter if you really like them, your family's not going anywhere. Friends can come and go, siblings are forever.
Sure. I totally agree with that. But
And I just she framed it like he was anti-sibling.
Yeah. Just to play devil's advocate, I've also turned down being bridesmaid sometimes just because and I will be honest about it of hey, I don't have the time and I don't want you to feel disappointed, months into this when I'm not able to dedicate that time and commitment to your wedding.
Actually setting upfront expectations that are hard to do,
Shout
but
out.
beneficial in the long run.
That's how you save your friendships. And if they
Yeah.
don't understand that's a huge, not just time commitment, money commitment,
Totally.
a lot of
Yes.
things.
And
with our schedules, you don't know what you're doing a week from now, let alone 6 months from now.
and you know that if people will say yes to being in the wedding party, they'll just say, yeah, of course, I'm honored. And then all of a sudden it's just well, here's your to-do list. And it's I can't
How many
do all
wedding
this.
parties have you been in where every single bridesmaid is complaining?
I don't pay much attention to it, and I still hear about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's always one bridesmaid who doesn't want to be there at least.
So many people do it
That's
resentfully.
horrible.
Yeah. No, but it's true.
It's so true.
It's true. They feel
Allie-
guilt tripped or
I
that
think
people
Allie
pleasing
planned a
attack-
whole bachelorette
Yeah.
party, so she's getting PTSD, wondering who's talking shit behind her back.
Next time you look at wedding photos, you can just tell. You look at the bridal party and you're like, she doesn't want to be there.
Yeah.
It's always in the eyes.
She got in a fight with the bride 2 days ago. So I'm fine with her not being in the wedding party. Not that my being embarrassed, but I'm surprised that she doesn't follow her.
She doesn't follow her, and the caption of her post said, I've come to realize my life is a never-ending plot twist, but it makes for a damn good, in parentheses, for sure weird, story.
For her brother's wedding?
So Hannah Brown's congratulatory text for her brother's wedding was about Hannah Brown's story.
A weird but damn good story.
It's also insane to not have the bride in any photos
Eddie.
from the post.
I love it. Good team, Hannah Brown.
They don't follow each other.
Go off, Hannah.
That is a main character caption if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, Hannah Brown is the main character of this wedding for sure.
And no one's mad.
I mean, what else? I'm not mad. I think it's hysterical.
So sister-in-law Haley doesn't follow Hannah, but she does follow Nick Viall.
She follows me?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Not sure.
I haven't been particularly gracious.
You got a loyal follower. Maybe not after this episode, but
she wants me to switch teams.
We should have her call in
I've been
1 week and be like, hey,
why do you follow me?
I'm curious.
Should we have her call in?
mediation. Her and Hannah Brown.
It would make for an interesting podcast, but weird.
But weird.
But damn good.
But damn good. But damn good. All right. Well, congratulations to Hannah's brother and her bride and Hannah's new sister-in-law.
Yeah.
May there soon be a follow.
Yes. Another interesting thing that's been going on, everyone's trying to predict who is going to be on Dancing with the Stars. I believe the full cast list is released on Thursday, but they're really trying to keep it under wraps. And obviously rehearsals have started. So people walking into rehearsals have been given these kind of reflective face shields.
It's the
to hide their
masked
identity.
singer
Which
mask.
Does not work.
Yeah.
But people have been able to see enough people from the side now, put things together. We've been able to see kind of a profile shot of a woman who really looks like Gabby. And so now people are like, Gabby's on the next season of Dancing with the Stars.
She's even wearing the same hoop earrings.
Exactly. They've been tracking
You've
earrings.
seen these photos?
Mm-hmm.
They've been tracking manicures. But another interesting thing, we're sleuthing here. And by we, I mean the internet. She goes into rehearsal wearing leggings and this oversized navy blue sweatshirt with sleeves that kind of have little indentations in them. And in this past season of The Bachelorette, Erich is wearing that same sweatshirt when he opens a date card and you can see the sleeves.
Oh.
So people are now like, it's Erich's sweatshirt.
Well, spoiler alert. We now know he's the only one left on the show. I mean, is that much of a spoiler, I guess?
Not really.
But I think these photos were before these
4
episodes.
days ago,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
4 days ago. Wow.
I just think it's interesting, you're having a top secret relationship and yet you're like, yeah, babe, I'll wear your sweatshirt to rehearsal.
It's not the most obvious sweatshirt. I'm not it's not a tie-dyed specific whatever. It's a forest green
it's some
zip up.
bluish random. Yeah.
I'm very thankful that people care about this show so much.
It's
and allow us to talk about it and recap it. But it's a shirt. And I don't think they're all it's
like a bank heist.
I don't
every
think people
single time.
realize just how and when I say people, I mean cast take for granted just how invested fans can be.
That's what I'm saying though, where it's every time it's a bank heist, they plan it out. They're we're going to find the Spotify playlist that they're liking this playlist for.
Yeah.
And then they're okay, we adding another thing to the list of stuff you're not allowed to do.
When they found out about Cassie and Colton originally from Venmo, they were Venmo requesting each other and that was public.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
Stupid.
Venmo should be go to your settings, set
It
it
is
to
not
private.
a social
the way,
media
if you
app.
really want to
Yeah.
find out if your ex is dating someone new, you check their Venmo.
It's just weird. Get out of my bank account.
Well, yeah, but just everyone should just go to
Yeah.
Venmo and set it
Yeah.
to private.
Yeah.
Why should that be
agree.
public
I mean,
information?
back in our college days when you were paying your roommate or something and you wrote for sexual favors.
Yeah.
Just to be public. That was,
Classic.
oh my God, so funny when
Classic
we were 19.
humor.
So many people wrote that exact phrasing, sexual favors.
And they thought that it was so original and funny. Or
All
to
right.
be in the early 2000s.
Speaking of being invested in The Bachelor, should we dive into this week's episode?
Let's dive in.
Oh my
I mean, there's so much to
God.
cover. I mean,
we have double the content.
yeah.
I feel like these episodes really validated our feelings on everything of guys saying that they're not sure if they're ready yet because they don't really know people. We don't know people. After this entire season, we're in overnight dates and we don't really know anyone.
I know. I mean, these guys are just kind of I'm not so sure. And they're kind of low key being shamed for it, even though this whole season was obviously about the two bachelorettes. Obviously we didn't get to see a lot because of limited airtime. So dates are cut short. I mean, there's probably dates we never even got to see. Who even knows? But even from a production schedule, I bet those dates that are typically a full day might have been a half a day sometimes.
Yeah.
And the conversations went from being, a good 10, 15 minutes to 8 minutes, which sounds silly, but in that world is half the time,
Yeah.
And you're left with less time to build a connection. So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I think it kind of definitely validated everything we've been feeling. Good looking, clean cooking with Caraway. Ooh.
I have their Dutch oven and it's been sitting proudly on my stove just because it's so pretty and it just looks brand spanking new. But I'm moving, so I had to package everything up and bubble wrap it. And I took it off my stove and it's it doesn't matter how many times you use it, it will still look brand new. Like the inside, the outside, it like people were like, have you even touched this? And I was like, yes, it just constantly retains its beauty.
I have 2 Caraway cooking sets. I use them every day. I love them. They are easy to clean. Also, they're just chemical free, which is
they're
great.
Smooth, like non-stick.
And they're so pretty on your stove.
I will also say that Natalie, as you've mentioned, loves to bake. And you guys have those like tan baking trays, and everything in your house is so like neutral, and you have your little
like
wooden
California,
shelves and like
breezy.
your white couch, and like in comes Natalie with these tan
I
trays.
put Caraway up there with the MVP of things I've been able to discover through this podcast. And you can too. If you don't have a Caraway set, are you even cooking?
I feel like a lot of people are getting married. It's like the year of weddings. What a great gift. A gift card.
Amazing wedding
pans,
gift.
Yeah.
Oh, birthday gift.
Yeah.
Moving in gift, maybe like
True.
a housewarming gift. Their bake set, they had an assortment of non-toxic baking essentials every modern kitchen needs, so you can get baking in no time. Caraway products are made without any toxic materials like PFAs, PTFEs, PFOAs. Easy cooking, easy cleaning. Over 25,000 people have raved over the Caraway kitchen, and now it's time to try it yourself. This deal is exclusive for our listeners, so visit carawayhome.com/VIALL or use code VIALL at checkout to get 10% off your next purchase. Caraway, non-toxic cookware made modern. Helix, get the best sleep of your life. I experienced the same joy that I did the other night. I went to Wells and Sarah's wedding, had to sleep in a hotel room. It was a nice hotel. It's a fine mattress, but it wasn't my Helix mattress.
No, it was not.
Truly, my favorite part about traveling now is
coming home.
And getting into bed. I'm not kidding. It's always like, this is a great bed. And it's a Helix mattress, and you can have it too. Helix has over 12,000 5-star reviews. So you don't have to take my word for it, but my word should be good enough. No, but seriously, Helix, it's an incredible mattress. I will never sleep in another mattress again. Because other mattresses I've had where I was like, yeah, they're nice. I never really felt like they were special.
There's something about a really good bed.
And I've paid less for my Helix mattress than I have for other mattresses that aren't as good.
And probably don't last as long.
Well, I don't know. I've had my Helix mattress for 2 years now. And
exactly. I just feel like other mattresses, even if they're super expensive, suddenly like there's like lumps and like you have to replace it or flip it.
Yeah.
Not with Helix.
And it doesn't even matter what you do on your Helix mattress. You can really break it in and it's still brand new. You know what I'm saying?
This is a not safe for work conversation.
Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Just go to helixsleep.com/VIALL. With Helix, better sleep starts now. I love how Gabby and Rachel kind of started off by kind of just recapping all their men, talking about it. I noticed, you know how Gabby says yeah a lot?
Yeah.
I noticed in their yeah, she does that. Not only does she audibly says yes, but even after she gets done talking, she'll say something and immediately starts nodding her head in agreement.
It's like this nod, but her eyes are like a little bit squinchy, and she's like, yeah,
whatever. And she'll say something, usually very articulate and well thought out. Really love the things that Gabby has to say. And then she'll say it in preparation for what the person, like I'm talking to you. I'm like, hey, Cathy, you know, like this thing. And then I'll say it and immediately start agreeing with whatever you're about to say.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like very, totally.
I feel like people who don't get the kinds of like validation or affirmation that they maybe like wanted or deserved earlier in life go really out of their way to provide it for others. Like I just think
Maybe that's it.
I think it's very
this
much
is so much for me to process at 9 a.m.
No, but I would still prefer active listeners to someone that's completely dead-faced and you don't know what they're thinking or emoting or whatever.
You make a good point, though. I think maybe that's what she's doing. Anyone else? Like Clayton took a few more punches.
Yeah, he did. And are we going to talk about, I mean, this is bigger picture, overarching, encompassing all the episodes. Are we going to talk about the fact that they've expressed love to multiple people?
That's what I'm saying. And like at this point, it's just like Clayton made mistakes. We're not reversing course on the mistakes he made. He's apologized. He recognized that maybe he was insensitive to people's feelings. And Gabby and Rachel certainly talked about, hey, we don't want to be the horrible person that Clayton was to us last year, was kind of the sentiment. But to your point, Allie, it's like, you talk about it all you want, but like the criticism I think I had, you know, because there's all these conversations, like, well, you know what you signed up for, you know it's fantasy suites. And I remember, I think I said something to the effect of like, none of that stopped Clayton at any point from sitting down with any of these women that he liked the most and said, hey, things are about to get heavy.
That he liked the most. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, actually, I didn't even know. I didn't even do that on purpose. But just say, hey, we're about to go into this fantasy suites. I just want to know what your expectations are. What are your expectations of me? It's not like Gabby and Rachel did that with any of their men, it seems like. Not that certainly nothing that we saw.
Those are not things that I feel like people are taught. People have to learn that kind of communication.
I agree. But nevertheless, we were still critical of Clayton for not having done that.
The way that he communicated it was very poor.
Yeah, he just assumed they were on the same page as him, or he didn't care. And to your point, Gabby and Rachel are talking about it, but like,
and I think
how do they know what these guys think about?
It's interesting because they finished their season, and when they were announced as bachelorettes, they were doing all these interviews of, well, how are you going to be different? And how are you going to approach this? And they made jokes of not fall in love with like everyone, da-da-da. Like they had these jokes. And I totally understand that you don't know what this is until you are the lead. You don't know until you've walked in those shoes. And so I'm not blaming them in any way for expressing those feelings or having feelings for multiple people, because I think it's super easy to do. But I think it would have behooved them to then say, it's interesting to see it from this perspective. And we can maybe better understand Clayton now that we've done this week from this side.
Yes, I wanted to see a little bit more empathy. When I had a lot of frustrations with Andy and Caitlin, you know, from the experience I had being a 2-time runner-up. And when I was the Bachelor, I had a ton more empathy for what they had to go through. I even talked about it with Andy, like when she like popped in on the show. I certainly have talked about it with Caitlin offline and publicly. And like, you don't see any of that. And yet they are still throwing out the, I'm falling in love with you. And what the fuck is the difference? I mean, I know they make it such a big fucking difference on the show, but like when you are Avon or Erich and Tino and these guys, trust me, like it feels really fucking profound. And it is used as a tool to like get people to advance their feelings and continue to open up. So like, I'm sorry, like Rachel is leading someone on for sure.
I would be curious I feel like if you were to get them in on your podcast, Rachel and Gabby would probably both say,
I don't think Rachel's coming on anymore.
Yeah, well, maybe Gabby coming on here would say that it's interesting to have that perspective now, but for them to start off one of the episodes with them sitting down and still harping over the stuff that happened last season with Clayton just felt very ill-timed.
Yeah. It was just like,
why are we bringing him up when you're going to fantasy suites?
Why is he still taking punches?
Yeah.
I do think it was like the lens of being like reminding people about like just how crazy stuff was. Cause I feel like I sometimes forget how insane that was with Clayton when he was like yelling "I love you" off of balconies, like with all three of the. So I kind of get the like it's obviously going to be on their brain, and I get them wanting to like mention it in some capacity. But I agree that maybe like the light of like in a very like blaming way towards Clayton, as opposed to like being like, this is a part of the process where it can get really freaking messy. Yeah, and now we're there.
I mean, Clayton was way more like boastful about it, and definitely a little bit more sloppy. But I think, and it seems like we're all in agreement, like you can talk about it all you want, but like what they ended up doing wasn't all that much different. And if you're gonna like throw punches this late in the season to some guy who quite frankly should just be in your rearview mirror at this point, I would think you would do it a lot differently. And you would be really empathetic to like the people you're pursuing. And you'd be very careful with your words. And the Rachel and Avon date triggered me.
How so?
It triggered me for Tino, I guess. I just assumed she's with Tino. And it just seemed like such an insincere conversation on both parts. It was like, these are two people who I couldn't tell if they just like are faking it because it's like, we're here and people often in the situation just say what they think they should say, or they mean it and they're just don't know. It was either this is a really immature conversation that reminds me of two 17-year-olds talking about how much they like each other. I mean, it was just like...
Yeah, like before they both go to college.
I really, really like you a lot. We're growing and growing.
That's what Rachel's done this entire time, is she said these kind of like pre-packaged lines that you feel like a bachelorette should say throughout the entire season. When we saw it in Hometowns, we saw it in the dates with Avon. And I don't really see that with Tino, which may be your point. Yeah,
I think with Tino,
she feels more authentic with him. She feels like it looks like we're seeing this girl who legitimately has a crush on a guy versus her other relationships, when we see her talking, it almost feels like some sort of element of acting.
But well, she's obviously, as the Bachelorette, she's in a position of power, right?
Calculated is way too big of a
calculated,
term.
but like she's almost motherly with the other guys.
Yeah.
It feels like
thought
maybe
through.
elegance is kind of what she's going for first and foremost. Like I think some
Yeah, for
bachelorettes
sure.
have almost like a first lady energy about them in
She
terms of they're like,
definitely
I'm
wants- yes.
dignified
Michelle
and I'm
has that.
elegant
Yeah.
and like I'm in control and I'm poised. And I feel like Rachel is a bachelorette who very much like falls in that genre.
For sure. I think the juxtaposition of having to share the stage with Gabby and Gabby being very opposite, we're very kind of authentic, raw, and real.
Yeah, I feel like you're either first lady or you're cowgirl. And Gabby's obviously cowgirl and Rachel's first lady.
We're bouncing around. I think it's going to happen this episode because there's so much. But when watching Rachel and Tino, there was friction. They had a real conversation. I really quite liked both Tino and Rachel in that conversation. I thought they both handled it well. I love how Rachel like thoughtfully stood her ground and asked some like really pointed questions towards Tino about like, hey, like, I don't know. Like, I love how she said, you know, even at a minimum, I thought they would just say, hey, we don't get it, but like we support you, which that's a valid, I love that she said that.
Yeah, that I just want acceptance.
Yeah. And I love that Tino was just like, hey, I'm a 27-year-old or 28-year-old
Yeah.
man. At the end of the day, I'm going to choose my life for myself and my
Yeah.
parents are going to get on board. I really enjoyed the entirety of their conversation. But like against the Avon, it was just like, this is such a waste of my time.
The juxtaposition of the two is really like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
But I mean, her relationship with Tino just seemed much more authentic in general. But I didn't expect her to actually stand up for herself in that way and like put his dad on blast.
I thought Rachel crushed her
Yeah,
conversation with Tino because
absolutely.
she stood up for herself without like everything she said made sense. She had the right to say it, but she was respectful of, I guess, everyone. Yeah. So it's just, I wish she would still be authentic with some of these other people. And like, it's just so obvious when she's being real and when she's being the Bachelorette.
My only note with her and Tino's conversation is she kept on using words of she's nervous, she has anxieties, and she used those multiple times, which feels like your body telling you that you have, there are red flags.
Well, it's kind of like in the past, we would see that as the spark, as they say.
Spark or butterflies,
butterflies.
which you
And
realize
now we've learned is maybe your, inner
you
self
should have that
saying-
for the first
Yeah.
couple weeks, but not after that.
Question for you.
Yeah.
I'm watching it, and I'm watching the Avon episode, and they sure make it seem like there was some sex at the end of the fantasy with her and Avon. Who knows? We have no idea if there actually was, but they certainly lean into it.
There was the line like he's the full package.
Yeah, and
so
she
it's like
giggled and-
he's- So it's like Dick has been seen or
Yeah.
experienced in some capacity.
Yeah, there was definitely, but who knows?
Some touchy feelies.
Yeah. OTPHJ minimum.
Now, if this conversation is based on the premise that Rachel and Tino end up together. If you're Tino and you're watching this back, what's harder for you to watch? Would it be harder for you to watch your now fiance on a date with someone she clearly, what you have is not even shown? It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing here. Now, if Rachel hooks up with Avon, are you more frustrated that she had like a last hurrah with a guy that she clearly doesn't have the same connection with you? Would that be harder for you to accept? Or would it be harder to like see her also falling in love with someone else only to have picked you and say, hey, yeah, I really care for this person, but at the end of the day, you were my person? Like, what's harder for you? What would be harder for you to accept?
But she loves Tino more.
But you get the question? With Avon, we just assume if there was sex, it was just more like, like you're hot. He's clearly an attractive guy. There's some physical chemistry. I don't see the emotional
His family
spark.
loves her.
Yeah,
It's a
his
big
family
deal.
loves
Yeah.
her. So if you get engaged to Tino and Rachel's like, hey, just, like hooked up with Avon, and Tino watches it back and just like, you didn't even like the guy.
Yeah.
But is that more reassuring than what if Tino was watching it only to watch like a real true connection with that? Which would be harder for you to see the connection or know that they chose to sleep with someone that it didn't even seem like they liked and they slept with them days before you got engaged to them?
Both would really hurt. That would be painful.
Yeah, it's a tough position. Everyone in right now is in an incredible tough position. And this whole episode was everyone trying to like not get mad or frustrated, but also being asked to deal with impossible choices that you never get asked to deal with in the real world.
I wonder if she would have done that if Tino's hometown had gone perfectly.
Totally.
Boy, that makes me feel even worse. I mean, I hope it wasn't like a
If she had no reservations about Tino and his family, would she have let the relationship, and we say this as if Avon is going home, but we don't know. But like,
I mean, eventually he's going home.
No, would that have transpired in the same way had she not had that conflict with Tino's family?
I think it depends on how secure they make you feel, because if the partner at present is making me feel super secure, then I think it would be more of a, if they were really in love with that person, then I'd be like, okay, well, that's just a testament to the fact that you did your due diligence, you really explored everything, and you made a decision that you feel like fully confident in. Because I think there's that temptation to be like, but I'm so wonderful, you could never possibly love anyone the way you love me.
So it'd be harder for you to know that they hooked up with someone that ultimately there wasn't much of a connection there?
Not because I have an issue with them taking like a buzzer shot before monogamy, but because I think it's leading on. I wouldn't like them treating another person that way and like trivializing that other person's feelings with the implications of like how much it would lead them on.
It says a lot about their character.
What if there were upfront expectations about like,
what if it's like, hey, it's not you. You want to...
Yeah.
And I also,
is that realistic in the show?
Everything's happened.
I also wonder too, it's like we're saying there's no connection, but we've also acknowledged that we've not seen a ton this season based on the format. So we're like saying...
We're saying there's no connection, but the guys are also saying there's a weird connection.
We're also basing it off of what we've seen with... Granted, you're right. It's an edit, like, so we deserve to be wrong.
She said, like, she's falling in love with Avon. So, like, this might even be, like, a moot point because it's like she could be talking to Tino being like, no, you don't understand. I was really into him and I was trying to decipher if he could be the one.
Yeah, but if I'm just saying, I'm watching it. The reason I asked this question, because I'm thinking, what is Tino thinking about all this? Because, like, I'm watching it being like, as a fan, as a viewer, I'm like, this relationship is, I don't believe anything here. I don't believe anything they're saying. I don't believe anything Avon's saying. I don't believe anything Rachel's saying. It was like, yeah, this is great. There was just nothing there. It was just two people talking.
Doesn't position of date also kind of play into who the lead hooks up with and who they don't? Because if they put Tino first, I don't know that...
Usually the winners go last, but I noticed that I think they switched it up this year on purpose because I think people were catching on. It's not always the case, but usually it seems like the front runners are the last ones, and I think they definitely switched it up this time. Maybe Jason was the front runner, as Gabby seems to have claimed, but who knows? I think it would be harder. You're right. You make a valid point about I don't want anyone to lead anyone on. At the end of the day, if you wanted one more go of it, I'm not thrilled. Not my favorite choice you made, but I'd rather know that like your feelings for me were that much stronger than anyone else. And it would be harder for me to know. I want to know that in 8 weeks, it wasn't hard for you because it was hard enough for us to get to this place in 8 weeks. It would be harder knowing that you had to struggle with someone else. I mean, there's different ways to look at it, but I think it would be harder for me.
So my question for the room is, it's like, to me, it's pretty, I think Rachel definitely picks Tino. And I think the conversation that happens is, I said falling in love, but like, you know, and in this environment, the relationship was advancing, and especially with the rocky stuff with like your family, I really was trying to explore all my options fully. And I did feel a sense of love, but like I was in love with you. Is that a good enough answer for you? The distinction of like, I'm falling in love with you to Avon versus I'm in love with you to Tino.
It's interesting that you say that because we've been critical here of Rachel of it being obvious when she's playing the role of the Bachelorette. And from personal experience and hearing from friends, one of the biggest challenges couples have outside of the show is not knowing when to like be a human and be like real about a relationship. Because like if you're Tino, the fuck, you know, you'd be like, you sound like, what do you sound like? You sound like you're talking to me like you're on the show.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what she said, I'd be like, what? Like, I'm here, I'll listen, but like, what the, falling, like it's all semantics. You know?
Jason, even though I don't like that whole situation, I'd rather him say I have really strong feelings, but I don't know if in this time frame I can get there.
I fucking love Jason.
Oh, and he kept calling it a bubble and how they don't even actually really know each other outside of the bubble. I was like, ooh.
Jason was so real. I mean, we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sad that, you know, Gabby's feelings are hurt about that. And I don't know what she meant by him leading him on, but yeah, I thought Jason was awesome.
Yeah.
I got emotional watching him and
so
maybe it's because Nate made me cry.
It was a big day yesterday.
By the way, by the way, spoiler alert, I forgot to mention, Nate.
Oh my God.
Michelle's ex, Nate Olakoya, is here on Thursday. episode drops. We recorded it yesterday.
And he made you cry.
Mm-hmm.
He cried, then he made me cry.
I've never made you cry.
No.
Well, I've been here like 12 times and I've never made you cry.
When a beautiful, when Nate, he's this 6'8".
Yeah,
just
Nick
charming.
was obsessed with how hot Nate was.
He's hot.
If you're looking for a drinking game, take a shot every time Nick compliments Nate's appearance. You'll be drunk.
Stunning. He's a
he's
man.
a handsome guy.
Natalie's gonna get jealous.
When a man, like he cried, and I guess something internally was like, "I'll cry with you, man." Like, you know, I got emotional. Anyways, Jason got me choked up. I could just see when Jason talks. You know, like what I love about watching Gabby and Jason talk is that, and I think why there's an attraction there, and people call it trauma bonding and things like that, but I feel like that oversimplifies. I think there may be a trauma bond with Erich because of what he's going through with his father, but with Jason, it's really interesting because clearly they're very different people, but Gabby keeps talking how much he sees her in a different way. And when I see Jason, I see someone who, I don't know what happened to him or whatever, but he's been through it somehow.
He's very guarded.
He's been hurt somehow. And you can tell when he talks, there's like this very thoughtful earnesty of like, but like he knows he's been hurt, but he's on the path to like healing. And he's in therapy and just like that working through whatever has hurt him. Like you can see that with Gabby as well.
Yeah.
And when those, I feel like when she talks to Jason, she feels very safe about the idea of not being okay in the moment, but knowing that like I feel a little damaged, I feel a little broken sometimes, but it's okay because I'm working through it. And I think she like sees her reflection in Jason, and that's got to be such a like a bonding thing, especially in Bachelor world. I hesitate to see like their compatibility outside the world because you look at Johnny.
I would say, yeah, they are two very different people who are approaching this situation from very different perspectives. He, I think, has a very high level of self-awareness. I don't know that he's completely aware of the whatever hurt he has felt, where he has these guards up, where he can only see, I mean, this environment is probably not the most conducive to where he's at in life, but like he has such guards up that I don't know. It just...
Yeah, it's because I thought about it too, because when I went in on the show, I went in very skeptical.
Yeah.
I had my guard up. I don't want to compare anyone's like experiences, but like I had certainly dealt with my own like heartbreak and blindsided and just pain in relationships. So going on The Bachelor, you're like, I don't know. And I just remember for me to do what I did, I had to actively say, fuck it. I had to say...
Totally.
You know...
He's 100% logic brained at this
Yeah.
point. There's no romance behind it. There's no like just leaning in and, you know, jumping off the whatever.
Yeah, and
Erich was literally and figuratively jumping.
And ultimately it seems like Gabby and Erich, what stopped the relationship was Gabby seeming to be willing to say, yeah, I hear you and all this stuff, but let's just say fuck it. Because, you know, I ultimately, for me, decided it's fucking like, it's an engagement, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you know, not to downplay an engagement, but
it's not. You're not signing papers.
You're not signing papers.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a
you
big
know,
deal.
you can. You know, there was always these thoughts you had, like you can repropose. People have done that. Like, you know, whatever. Just I chose to be more flexible, and Jason's just unwilling for whatever reason, and he has the right to. Like, clearly, what I loved, I DM'd him last night because he touched me emotionally. You know what? Can't guys just be... You guys all criticize us for not opening up or whatever. I said I really enjoyed watching this season, and I really appreciate your ability to protect your heart. I just think, you know, like...
Yeah. Did he respond to you?
No.
Oh.
He probably doesn't. I sent it last night. But like, yeah, he might have some healing to do, and I would love him to have said, fuck it. But like, more than anything, he seemed like a guy who just... He wanted to protect his heart, and I think we should like give him credit for that. And I don't know what he said behind closed door or why Gabby feels led on. I tend to believe that emotions were high, and
I also think that just because you haven't said I love you doesn't mean that the person doesn't feel that from you.
Yeah.
He did a lot of things. I'm only saying this because I was in a very similar situation of someone who is very logic-brained, who I felt very emotionally connected to, who is very guarded in saying the things that would escalate a relationship to have that emotional connection, but did all of the things to do that. So I think that she's probably basing it off of his actions and how safe she feels around him versus him actually saying the words "I love you."
I believed Jason's feelings towards Gabby more than as much as anyone else on the show. And
I actually think he does love her, and he's just
he really cares for her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also keep in mind, we are living in a time now where, the granted often misused, but the love bomb accusations of people we're calling out people who are getting a little too ahead of themselves with their feelings and the words they say and the recklessness with the way they use the L word
forgetting
with
they're
people.
in a bubble.
Or not even in the bubble, in the real world.
Yeah.
Maybe this happened with Jason where he went through a hard breakup and they were a little loose with the word I love you, only for feelings to have changed and it really affected one of the people in the relationship. We don't know. And so these are conversations that are happening all the time in the real world in terms of well, why did you tell me you love me? When people get ahead of themselves. And I always say listen, whether you define a relationship or whether you're excited, the less you know, the more likely things will change. So it doesn't matter if you call each other boyfriend or girlfriend. It doesn't matter if you said I love you to each other. The less you know about someone, things could change. And when things change and feelings change, it can be really painful to find out that someone who once said, I'm in love with you, no longer feels that way. And I just think, I don't know what the discourse was about Jason.
I feel like, though, Jason is the opposite of a fuckboy, and it's almost harder to get over something like that.
Sure. Because you see the potential.
Yeah.
The potential is such a
I know.
Potential fucks with you.
Because Johnny, I don't think he was a fuckboy per se, but I was also sir.
There's
sir,
so many
it's fantasy suites and you're not sure if you're ready to commit. Okay. I get maybe it takes time to make that choice, but I think with Johnny it felt a little bit more.
He called her the dopest girl. That guy is not ready for a marriage.
No. I wasn't even the dopest girl. The dopest girl I've ever hung with.
Yes.
He's young.
Which he's young and feels
he's young and it seems to be inexperienced with love.
Right. And so that's very different from Jason, who's 30, who's coming into this cool, calm, and collected. I think where so much of Gabby's pain is coming from is that in that ambiguity of the love is uncertain, we don't know which way it's going to fall. I think Gabby was always trying to make it fall on the side of the relationship, not forcing it, being honest with herself. But I think the quote that she had at the end where she was saying, I'm never reckless with my feelings. I think she was so careful to always make sure and uphold her treatment of others. And I can see why she would feel a little bit underserved when somebody else is, also proceeding with a ton of caution, but maybe falling more on the side of staying true to themselves and protecting their own emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I'm really curious about what the conversations were in the fantasy suite between Jason and Gabby.
Because one thing that she said was, she was it's not just that he doesn't want to get engaged to me, it's that, and then she kind of trailed off and was upset, but I was what?
He has a wife.
Yeah.
She definitely implied.
He's I have a kid, Nate, and I'm not telling you.
No, I feel like you almost watch this season he just Heisman's her with his feeling. He just puts up this emotional guard where she is no longer, whatever she says, it's bouncing back to her.
Yeah, it sounds when he sat down and said I don't know if I'm ready, and then she, seemingly she got frustrated by that. And then came back, and there with Gabby, what it was really fascinating. There was a lot of I'm upset, but all right, I'm gonna come back down and talk. And I loved how you kind of saw the, because that's what happens in disagreements. There's that instant reaction of frustration and anger, and then hopefully you were able to, okay, let's talk about it, work through it. Keep in mind this is all on camera. We don't usually get in fights and trigger our partners and frustrate our partners all on camera, and we get the whole stages of watching you get frustrated and things like that. But yeah, it seems once they went in the room, the fantasy suite, Gabby was just all right, we'll talk through it, we'll get off camera.
Yeah.
And it seems she tried to push, and Jason, my guess is that she pushed too much
Yeah.
for him. and he ended up saying, I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like
there is some level of avoidant in him.
Yeah, he must. But I also just want to make sure I feel like, again, we don't know what he said, but if it's like sometimes people, when you say like avoidant, like attachment style, it's almost like as if it's like a problem people have. Maybe it's okay for him to have felt the way he did. We're still talking about this insane Bachelor world, and people had even less time this season than other seasons to get to know people. So, like, I know we always like to be like, oh, you know what you signed up for, shit like that. But when it comes to someone like Jason, who's one of, a lot of people talked about mental health and therapy, but like he was very open about that. I just want to, like, I don't want to shame Jason and imply that maybe he did something wrong. It's just maybe two people who, in this crazy world, couldn't get on the same page, and maybe there was a lot of connections between them. And again, I see why they have a bond. I think but I don't think I don't think they're that compatible in the long run.
Interesting, because I look at Gabby's final three and I could see her with lives outside of this situation with all three of them. And that is so rare that I feel like with Jason, he is the prime example. I hate when people say if they wanted to, they would. I hate that phrase so much because I feel like that is a sweeping generalization. I feel like he is a prime example of when they're ready to, they will. Yeah. And he was not ready in that situation. If they were outside of this and they had been dating a year or 6 months or whatever, he might be ready to say, I love you, and put that guard down, bring that guard down. Or maybe, 2 more years, 3 more years into his therapy journey, he can actually unpack whatever. This is also speculation, but like why he has a guard up.
Yeah. You make an excellent point, because I absolutely agree with you that I could see Gabby with all three for different reasons. When she was out with Johnny, she said something, and it made me ask Natalie a question. She said, Johnny gets me better than anyone ever has. And I remember, I was like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I also think having your partner get, so I was like, Natalie, do you think you feel like you get me? Because like, I feel like that's a question that's not often discussed between couples in relationships. We ask all the things, but like, boy, that seems like a really big deal. If anything you want for a partner that you hope to be with for the rest of your life, getting each other would be kind of a big deal.
Yes, but also not disagreeing, but also the whole idea of how the one way to keep a relationship not fresh, I don't like that phrasing, but is to continue to get to know one another.
100%.
So isn't it nice when there is that space for mystery and continued evolution?
Totally, right? But just to feel understood. There's a difference between like you have everything, you've learned everything there is to learn about me. Also, like we're constantly growing and changing. Like in relationships,
it's like I understand the algorithm. I'm not saying I know every single output and I know every single way that you could be, but I understand the way that
I
you
get
go
the playing
about making
field,
decisions.
so to speak. Well, some people like they date and they're just like, I don't get. Like a common thing that people will say is, I just don't get you.
Yeah,
that happened. Like truly, like my second girlfriend, after we broke up, and she ended up being my fiance and cheated on me. But honestly, I don't think we ever got each other ever. And people getting relationships, not getting each other, and she gets Johnny, and there's something about that relationship that clearly you see a side of Gabby.
Yeah.
This playfulness, these jokes they tell, which again, like I think Gabby needs someone like that in her relationship. If she's with Erich, I don't know. Like Erich seems like a really nice guy. I really enjoyed how he's opened up. I just wonder if maybe Gabby's guy isn't here.
Interesting.
In the long run.
I saw this on TikTok, but someone said that the 6th love language is understanding.
I always say that gift giving is often like feeling understood. Like I think for most people who say gift giving, they're like, I don't want anything fancy. Like I just want I want to feel like understood by the gift someone gives me. But I feel like it's a different way of putting it.
Understanding. Yeah. You want to feel like if you feel like you constantly have to explain yourself in a relationship.
Being seen by someone is such an important factor in a relationship.
And I think Gabby with Johnny makes her feel seen. And as much as he might sound immature or have that fuckboy energy, like she makes it very clear when she's with Johnny, she feels like this level of comfort she doesn't get with anyone else.
Yeah. I mean, just to play devil's advocate, I feel seen by some of my friends, but
Totally.
That's one aspect of a relationship.
Oh, I don't think she should end up with Johnny.
Yeah.
But I just think if I'm Gabby, I would take note of that feeling because I think it's important to her.
A non-negotiable.
And even though she might have insane chemistry with Jason and or Erich, and maybe Jason also makes her feel seen and safe in other aspects, you know, I think she might need all of it. And I think she's seeing some of it in some of these guys. And maybe, because like Jason and Johnny seem so, like, they're not similar at all. Like maybe Jason has a playful side.
No, they're
we just
completely
haven't
different.
seen it.
I feel like Jason and Johnny, the balance of the two is Erich. Like he brings out her playful side and he also makes her feel safe. He's able to talk about emotional vulnerability. Like I think he said, I'm looking at my notes, but there was a quote that he said on the date. He loves that Gabby is emotionally intelligent. And yeah, went on about that. But I feel like he is the blend of the two.
Yeah.
And the fact, I know people are going to rip him apart for coming back and saying that, like, I don't think he was slut-shaming her in any way by, I can't imagine you doing the same thing that we did with other people. I don't think a lot of people liked him saying that, but I also think that he felt comfortable enough to express to his partner a place where he felt insecure, and I don't know.
No, let's talk about that for a second, because I mean, there's just such there is.
I think we should name the
appreciate
statement of Erich's, like, which is that the thing that they talked about behind closed doors in fantasy suites, and that was later brought up on camera, was Erich's feeling that this week to him felt like cheating. He didn't say you are cheating, but he was saying that, like, by going to fantasy suites with other people, that feels like cheating. I feel like that's like important context.
Was she more?
That was actually said. We know that for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Was she also more upset that he brought it up on camera than him having those feelings?
Yeah, because she said, like, you know, we talked about this. We discussed it. We reached like a conclusion.
Yeah.
And honestly, that would raise red flags for me too, regardless of what the conversation was. I don't care if it's about like talking about your cat. Why do you have to bring it back up on camera? It makes me question, like, are you doing this for an edit? Are you here for the right reasons? Like,
edit. Well,
then conversely, it's like, but if you want to feel like your partner's bringing stuff up with you.
I see
even
both
if it's
sides.
There really is a two-sided thing of like being like, I need to update you because I said this one thing and it was honest in the moment, but now I'm in this different place and I really want us to like communicate about where I'm at now.
I didn't even feel like it was an update though.
Let me just, as someone who's lived through that experience, paint the picture of what these people are going through during the week of fantasy suites. Erich seemingly got the first one, right? I was a recipient of 2 of the first ones. And even if you're first or last, it doesn't really matter. You know that Fantasy Suites Weeks is going on.
Yeah.
And almost always, they avoid, as opposed to having upfront expectations and maybe talking about this insane week that's about to happen, people go out of their way to make sure people avoid having any of these conversations so that people can internalize their fears about what this all means.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever Erich and Gabby talked about and whatever happened, who knows? But like, again, like, you know, these are normal feelings. And most people who go on the show aren't in polyamorous relationships. They are looking for monogamous relationships and committed relationships. And they're also so you go in there, you start on a season of like, I don't know, I'm here for the show. I'm not sure if I'm going to fall for someone. And then a handful of people go, oh my God, I'm falling in love with this person. They start developing real feelings and they get the fantasy suite week. And then it's just like, hey, by the way, I'm going to spend the night with like 2 other people. And you're just like, all right, cool. Like, I know this is part of the show. So like, okay. But like, and then keep in mind at the end of, by this time in the season, everyone feels and is being told, for the most part, if you're being authentic, that your relationship is stronger than everyone else's. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you're thinking, all right, like they're just gonna have to go through the motions, but like this is gonna be special for us. And then, so let's say you have the fantasy suite week, and then there's a day off, and then there's another fantasy suite, then another day off, then there's a fantasy suite. So you have a whole week to do nothing but think about what the other person is doing. And the only conversation you have are with producers who are like asking you what you think is happening. You know, you're constantly being fucked with. You're constantly being like asked, like, what do you think is going on? And all I'm saying is for these people to like not pitch a perfect game or handle it perfectly or want to maybe talk through things. What is a relationship if not to be able to like check in with your partner to say, I know we talked about this, but like, hey, I'm struggling. Mm-hmm. And Erich isn't afforded off-camera time. He doesn't get to choose whether something is recorded or not. So like, you know, let's just be careful, like not to like criticize any of these people. I just like, I love that. Ultimately, I like that Erich and Gabby seem to have respectful conversations. They both seem to, in the moment, even Gabby, at first, I thought for a moment, Gabby, when she said, I've worked so hard to make sure that I'm 100% certain at the end. And I was like, yeah, I get that. But like in that moment, all I thought was like, you're not in any way thinking about what it's like to be in Erich's shoes.
Yeah.
Having been through in Erich's shoes. She later, I think she was talking to Jesse and she recognized, I loved it. Gabby was just like, I haven't put myself in Erich's shoes. And then they worked through it. And like, I loved how they worked through that whole thing. I mean, like, yeah, like that's a relationship. They had to work through these very difficult situations that neither of them are experienced. I mean, Gabby a little bit because she experienced with Clayton, but I loved that we got to see that. And ultimately it seemed like they worked through it in a relatively healthy way and were able to say like, I'm struggling here. I don't know how to say this, but this is how I feel. I hope that's okay. I don't want to make you feel bad, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. Like,
I agree. I feel like there are people who are going to say that conversation was a red flag, but I also feel like as much as I love Gabby, that was the first time I saw her this entire season. It looked like she was invalidating his feelings in some capacity, saying, you are not right for bringing this to me in this moment when they don't have another opportunity to be off camera before. I mean, they do get one more date together, but he's proposing to her in a week.
Yeah, he's got no time. And what he probably was just like, I'm just struggling. And probably someone was like, well, would you like to talk to her if we could make that happen? And he probably said yes. It's just like these people, I understand why people on the internet might like be quick to say, oh, that's a red flag. But like, trust me, like when you look at the whole landscape, like all Erich did was calmly try to communicate a feeling. And he from my standpoint, seemed to acknowledge that he tried to do it without making her feel like he was criticizing her. Obviously, he didn't do that perfectly.
Yeah.
Sometimes we, like every time we're in a relationship and you say, I feel this way, it's very easy for your partner to feel accused, even though like that's what you don't want to do. But like we get sensitive because you care about your partner. And you're like, well, I made you feel that way and I feel bad. And then you get defensive. I'm like, that's a fucking relationship.
His intentions were good behind it. He even said multiple times, even if it wasn't communicated in the best way possible, he's like, I want this to be positive. I want this to be a positive conversation.
Yeah. I thought it was ultimately really positive. And honestly, I think if those two can communicate like that in their relationship, if they are in one, good for them. I think they have a chance of working out because...
The one red flag I had with Erich was, I think when they were on their one-on-one date, he said that he was nervous and she said, oh, are you going to run? And he goes, yeah, I'm going to walk right out and then I'm going to walk all the way back to New Jersey. And I get it was a joke, but like that would give me pause.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shoot, I think everything should give everyone pause in this world. I mean, they have, like, you're just like, when I was going through it, like I was, pretty much pot committed to Vanessa, but a couple of things happened that I was like, this gives me pause. I just chose to ignore it.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, well, I feel how I feel and like, I don't know what to do. But these people are put in impossible situations. And I know like, for dramatic effect, it's fun to watch, but like, let's be careful not to like call them red flags when ultimately what I actually think we're seeing is like pretty like mature emotional maturity and like communication that like, people are watching it and you see this fight and they run to Twitter and they start saying, oh, this is fucked up. And then like 5 minutes commercial break happens, comes back and Gabby's like, and I could have empathized with him a little bit better. You're like, oh yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. And then they work it out and then all of a sudden, but the tweet's still up.
I know maybe we want to cover more stuff on Gabby. I just want to put out there, I feel like I want to discuss the Zach, Rachel blow up towards the end.
Raise of hands in the room. We without knowing what happened, we all understood what Zach was trying to say. Like we believed him, right?
I don't.
Are we supposed to raise our hands?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, raise our hands.
Okay.
Like, it's just like, it's like that tracks. I can see Rachel being insincere. Because at this point, she's going to pick Tino.
Yeah.
And she's been leading Zach on the whole time.
He's been her fluffer.
And she tried to soft break up with him in the fantasy suite.
Also, that conversation with them over breakfast where she was like, how are you feeling about everything we've
Oh,
talked
that was
about?
brutal.
Everything feels like a scene.
Like it was so, I was like,
She pecked him twice.
I know. And I was just like,
She would call them,
clenched the
Natalie would call
entire
those
time.
Phyllis kisses.
Oh, is your grandma?
Your grandma.
Okay.
She gave him Phyllis kisses.
I agree. And I definitely, I believe that there was that component. The one thing is that it kind of rubs me the wrong way when someone says they weren't themselves. Like it kind of, I'm not saying it's completely incorrect, but it does rub me the wrong way when someone tries to take ownership of like who the other person is and saying because their perception doesn't account for the version that they got, that they were being like dishonest or not true to themselves. I just feel like that's a lot of...
That's fair.
I'd say I feel like you're not being the most authentic version of yourself in this moment.
And I think he even further articulated this later on, is that Rachel wasn't the person that she had been presenting to him the whole time up until this point, and behind closed doors, he saw a very different version of her than what was presented. That's how I read it.
Mm.
And maybe this is just like a technicality, but I feel like it's not that those are two different people. It's that this person who you felt the whole time also has the capacity to behave in this way. And maybe it's recontextualizing the way you interpret all that other elements of their personality that was there before, but like it's expansive. Like you're continuing to get to know them. It's not like one or the other.
You're implying that maybe Zach wasn't paying attention, and that's possible. But I think what's more likely, what we've seen from Rachel and her ability to kind of like go in this Bachelorette role, like Rachel with Tino is a completely different version than Rachel with anyone else, right? And Zach hasn't seen that yet because Zach doesn't get to see her with Tino, right? But the Rachel who's gonna pick Tino is the Rachel that went into the fantasy suite room with Zach.
Interesting.
And my guess is that, my guess is Rachel was like, you're my third, I don't know what happened with Avon, but like, you're my third fantasy suite. She mentally, and I empathize with Rachel, like she mentally is like, she's ready to, after this conversation with Tino, that probably was heavy. She was probably worried about it. Who knows what happened with Avon? Maybe it was because that conversation with her parents didn't go well. She reconnected with Tino, had a great conversation, had an amazing fantasy
Her
suite.
oxytocin was off the charts.
And now she's just like, well, fuck, I gotta let this guy down, And like, so instead of like hooking up or like talking about the future, well,
normally what someone would do in that situation, if they realize they're dating multiple people and they really like someone else and they're going to choose that person, is they start pulling away. But you are now forced to go on this romantic date where then you are asked if you want to have an overnight portion, and fulfilling her bachelorette duties, she is going to say yes to all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing if Rachel was given, Rachel probably wouldn't even want to have gone into the fantasy suite with Zach, but maybe that particular choice wasn't totally hers in that moment. Think about it. He was like, all of a sudden she's like talking about my age. Because it sounds like the way Zach described it, is that she went in there again, like, I'm going to pick Tino, but instead of just like keeping it real and saying my feelings aren't there, she tried to make it seem like, are you really ready?
Yeah, she's like, I'm going to plant the seeds for the things I'm going to use in our breakup.
Yeah,
exactly.
Literally. Which is kind of fucked up and shitty.
And his emotional maturity, I feel like,
through the roof.
Yes.
Also, I loved when he was having the conversation with Jesse Palmer, and even Jesse was like, and she's 26. Like,
months older. Yeah.
And he's 28.
Totally
In the same group.
Yeah.
But it's giving like older sibling by 1 year who's like, you don't get to sit at the adults table.
It is manipulative if that's what she did.
Conversely, so are we counting out the idea that maybe these were concerns that she was like, I guess if we're just, now's the point where we kind of lay it out on the table. These are the final things that could possibly go wrong if we're in that final level of like vetting a partner.
What do you mean?
Like, could it be the kind of thing where she was like, okay, like I've been really focusing on this journey. I've been falling in love with you. Like, is there any chance that these were things that like arose, like these were concerns that arose organically in the moment now that things are getting more serious opposed to...
Anything's possible, sure, but I doubt it based off of like what we saw from Zach, because Zach seems like to be a pretty well thought out guy who seems emotionally pretty mature. I mean, he's young, but he seems to have gone through it and done the work. Like he seems to be the same age as Johnny, but emotionally they seem like on very different playing fields from what we've got to see. And Zach's whole thing was, it just, none of it made sense. Like, bring up my age. I bet Zach was like, all right, let's talk about age.
Yeah.
But like, it sure sounds like Rachel was like, had decided this was going to be the excuse and just wouldn't budge. So no matter what, it's not to use another buzzword, I bet Zach felt stonewalled.
I was going to say he felt emotionally slighted.
Yeah, because she probably went in there and been oh, hey, by the way, are you really ready? You're too young. And Zach's thinking, well, first of all, you're like 2 months older than me. Second of all, like, I'm 25.
This is also out of nowhere. You've known my age since.
Yeah. I'm not 13. I'm 25.
Yeah.
You know, like,
right.
I'm a quarter century old and I might not be 30, but like, yeah, I am ready.
I just wish he'd given more examples. And I get that it's really
Maybe,
hard when you're in a fight to like record stuff down word for word. But because he just kept saying she wasn't herself. She wasn't herself. She wasn't herself. And I was really curious, like more of like what he meant by that.
I hope we get that in the after the final rose.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if it's like if it was just like, because I hear your point of like him having the right to say like what's her and what's not. Like, I feel like maybe he was just trying to put it into words, and he kind of did a little bit of just like, she was not the same Rachel than who he'd seen before.
Yeah.
I felt like maybe there was a level of sincerity, or that he'd felt an amount of all in with her that he then felt a pullback of.
I think he used the word fake.
Yeah, he said it was the most inauthentic conversation I've ever had.
Inauthentic, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, what was being said in this conversation?
You also have to keep in mind that Zach, up to this point, has been like full on in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, these movies, their dates, the airplanes, and Rachel's been really present and connected with Zach up to this point. Like, obviously, we had the benefit of watching her with Tino. Zach doesn't get that benefit, but she's still like, she was still pretty engaged with Zach, and he's been falling in love.
But the morning after was so awkward.
No, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying Rachel was in it enough. I think Rachel led him on. I don't fault her for it. That's unfortunately part of the role. But like, I think instead of just owning that, instead of just trying to like keep it real with Zach behind closed doors, I think she tried to make him feel like it was something wrong with him. And rather than a decision, rather than just maybe she just likes Tino more.
Mm-hmm.
She tried to make him feel bad for something that he couldn't control because she just has stronger feelings for some other guy, which I think is kind of shitty.
I hear that. And I don't, and it's not that I disagree. I just think, and you might roll your eyes, but I think in general, I think maybe.
We also don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
I think in general, maybe women feel slightly more pressure to manage, not just like communicating what they want to say, but to manage the emotional reaction of other people, both from a place of like, if it's bad, it's a safety thing, like kind of need to know how my words might hit someone. And I think like in general, like, you know, like the thing about how women are sometimes socialized to be more like conversationally accommodating or made to feel a little bit more responsible for a partner's emotions.
Sure.
And so I wonder in terms of leading him on, if it's a fine line of trying to like walk this tightrope of, I don't want to be dishonest with you, but I also don't want to be harsh. I want to be kind.
She was a little harsh, though.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with her leading him on. The Bachelor, the leads have to do that. It sucks. I fucking hated it. It like hurt my heart. Like, I hated hometowns. Like, fantasy. I had neck problems for 2 weeks because of the stress I got from fantasy suites of trying to navigate it. I have total empathy for Rachel. How she went about handling it and letting Zach know and making him feel like it was something that was his fault or like a shortcoming that he had, when at the end of the day, it sure seems like she just likes Tino more.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of shitty.
I'm not saying it's okay. I just think I can kind of empathize a little bit with why she might be drawn for that route, as opposed to just like the cold, harsh, like, I like someone more than you. The like, well, it's just because you're young. Like, you know, trying to make it about these other external factors as a means of letting them down. I don't think it's necessarily emotionally mature, but I think it's like understandable.
Of course, it's all understandable. This is an insane world these people are put in.
Yeah.
And just back to what we said before, if nothing else, maybe Rachel will have more empathy for Clayton. Not that Clayton shouldn't still have to apologize for his actions and learn from it, but even Clayton, like, you know, we all watch it and all this, like, go through it. Mm-hmm. Go through it and try to like work through this impossible situation on camera. And so I don't fault Rachel. I just hope that Rachel recognizes it and has some empathy for Zach and is contrite and apologetic for how she handled it, rather than doubles down and still tries to make him feel bad for something that like is bullshit.
We're asking Zach to be more specific, but I feel like Rachel has not been specific this entire season of like, even in hometowns, the families are asking what she loves about someone. She's like, oh, I love
he volunteers,
how caring they are.
He gives his blood.
Yeah, there's a lack of specificity on her end.
Yeah.
So to say someone's 25, if she had actually said, oh, well, I think that this aspect about you is a little bit immature, and I wonder if you are ready for X, Y, and Z, which I am ready for.
That's a very good point, that I could totally hear her in that behind closed doors being like, I just have to follow my heart in this journey.
Yeah. It's what does that mean? But that's the thing. Yes. It's the way in which she told him the morning, and I'm struggling for the words. The way that she was talking to him and saying like, so like you're good with what we talked about. Like there was clearly it was kind of like this keep it hush hush, but like we all know that like and again, this is me projecting
don't throw me on the bus.
And like over interpreting because we really don't know. But it was just the tone in which and the eye contact in which she made that with him, and I was like, what the fuck did they talk about?
I want her to read some Brene Brown of like, I feel like her, or I'm not saying her, but like when someone's level of like emotional awareness is like angry, happy, and sad, when there are a multitude of emotions that you can experience, shame, vulnerability, like all of these things that Brene talks about, there's like 61 different emotions that anyone can be feeling at a certain time. And I feel like having the verbiage to actually express that is so helpful when it comes to relationships.
Yeah. And you see it with Gabby over time and time again, and in terms of her ability to like
put into words what she's feeling.
Yeah, or just and empathize. Not, again, not in the moment exactly, because like I think going back to the Erich thing was a perfect example of first Gabby reacted to what she was feeling, and she felt obviously she reacted to what Erich said. She because she did work really hard, and and then Erich said the very thing Erich said the very thing she was hoping he wouldn't say. But like I said, she thought it through and then still recognized, okay, there is another side, and that is Erich's side, and even though my feelings are valid, so are his. And I'm like, wow, that was just like good for you, Gabby, and maybe we'll see that from Rachel. We got a cliffhanger with Zach. We don't even know what they're going to talk about. Maybe Rachel will acknowledge that. I'm really curious how she handles that.
I just if she feels attacked, or if she feels like her integrity is questioned, or
I don't think she's gonna handle it well.
Her like positioning as like a good, wonderful bachelorette is in any way threatened by what he says. I'm just like, hold on to your hats.
Yeah, I know. Well, I hope it's the former. I think it's gonna be the latter. And a lot will have to do with how Zach handles it. But like Zach has been nothing but a respectful king up into this point, and very careful with his words. So I hope he continues that. But we shall see. But you're right. I think it's possible that Zach very calmly and nicely, but still like stands his ground and says it, hey, like it just felt really inauthentic, and just felt like you weren't being real with me, and it felt like I saw a different side. And that alone, I think, could make Rachel react in a way that, well, might be fun to watch on TV.
But it's also, and then you have Tino, there was one quote from Tino that I thought was so indicative of where he's at. He's like, she's future Mrs. Forever. And I was like, yeah, that's how you see her. So I'm like,
Zach, you mean?
Sorry.
Yeah.
The way Tino talks about Rachel.
But Zach said the future Mrs.
No, that was Tino.
I know, there's a lot going on.
Well, Zach for the overnight was like, tomorrow I am looking forward to being even more in love with the future Mrs. Blank, and nothing that happens tonight is going to change that.
Zach said his last name. Tino said future Mrs. Forever, which I thought was such a awesome phrase for when you're like so head over heels for someone. And
Tino
so I'm like,
kind of annoys me though. He's getting on my nerves.
Sometimes, yeah, I see it.
My fantasy suite couldn't have gone any better. Like, okay.
he's a bro.
Yeah.
He's got sides that you're like, not my whatevs.
Not my type.
But
Wish them the best.
He seems overall like solid, I guess.
I do feel like they match each other.
Yeah.
In where they're at.
It's that intangible thing of like, there's something about Tino and Rachel's outlook that just feels like it meshes really authentically.
If they end up together at all, I think they could have some tough conversations.
I was going to say it will all stem from how they communicate through hardships coming out of the show.
Knowing what couples have to face, I have some reluctance on their ability to effectively
seems like
the
foundation for Gabby and Erich's communication is so much more established at this point than Rachel with any of her guys.
I think sometimes, certainly with Gabby, and also just like we got a lot more context about Gabby's story, and just obviously the heart goes out to her, like in terms of full landscape of a relationship with her mother, she finally like opened up. Like I don't think we got that context in terms of.
I think she'd shared it on Clayton's season, but I don't. Maybe
with the specificity of like her dad being in the army and her mom being gone and like raising herself and like kind of feeling like she had to like be different people to like get validation and love. I mean, I don't. Maybe she did, but
maybe it was more of an illusion before.
Certainly, like I was. Well, I mean, that's not easy.
Yeah. I loved her little speech to Erich. I thought it was so cute.
But I think, you know, and then Erich, obviously what he's going through with his dad, I think you have two people who can like fall in love and have this intensity, but still see like the bigger picture outside of this world.
Totally.
Where like, I could see how Rachel and Tino, through no fault of their own, you know, like charmed, privileged lives, not a bunch of worries going on right now. Certainly not like death or the fear of abandonment and all they have to focus on is this literal fairy tale. And they can have a tendency, and those people can have a tendency of making a bigger deal about smaller things rather than people who have a level of perspective about like real loss and real kind of emotional trauma. And I think you kind of see that juxtaposition between Erich and Gabby and Rachel and Tino.
Every time when they do a reality TV show and they go on a horse date and one of them gets the misbehaved horse, I love it. It works for me every single time. Never not funny. Watching like some man on a horse that's like, oh, he's going into the bushes.
when Jesse told Rachel that she was the only bachelorette here, did anyone like first there was like
yes
for a second there was concern.
Yeah.
Just like a split second. And then it was like, finally, I'm the only bachelorette.
Do you need me to do some more ITMs? Or
yeah.
You need some more shots of me walking in?
Rachel was on cloud 9. She's like, she's not dead, right? Okay, fine. This is amazing.
Without saying anything, you could see it in her eyes, yeah.
Glowing.
Well, but also with the lack of context he gave her, like, for all we know, like, she could have thought, like, oh, no, she's just doing her rose ceremony, like, in a different bush. Like,
you're on her.
In a different bush.
Well, you know, it's all wooded.
I mean, I get it. I get it.
It was a weird way that he told her, too. Like, he didn't explain anything about her position whatsoever.
The less you know, the more you worry.
Yeah.
Jesse. Also, can we talk about Jesse's little thing at the end?
At the Warner
what did
Brothers
you make
studio?
of that spiel?
It was like the
just doing his
drone
job.
coming in. Oh my God, it was so dramatic.
It actually felt more dramatic than other teases that they've had in the past.
Hey, listen,
it got me hooked.
Something about it was whoever said to do it on the lot was brilliant. Something about the set.
The set that was like in shambles before they set
darkness.
up.
It's like you're seeing behind the curtain.
He's like, we were gonna show you, but you need time to prepare.
It's like they gave the impression that like we had like clearly months have gone by since the end.
Yeah.
But they shot it in a way that was just like, we have to do this because the only way to give you this full story is to have 2 lives. And I have to tell you this now. And boy, we didn't even have time to set up the stage. We're just about to start. And
I would be so disappointed if it's the same old.
I know.
But he delivered it in a way of like, Zach had pulled Rachel. They went down to the beach to talk. A shark came aboard, bit off his arm, and it was super bloody, and they realized it was a bit too triggering, so they needed to rework it. Like, that's how he delivered this message in my mind.
I thought he did a great job.
I think he's phenomenal. I just wish it were Caitlyn for Bachelorette. That's my one thing.
I was a little skeptical of, and I think I said it last season of him being host, I was a little skeptical about him stepping into this role. I do really enjoy him, but I enjoy him more in his authentic moments than him as a host where he's doing the robotic, like,
I'm in a suit and I'm reading off a teleprompter.
I'm basing this on the fact that, like, you know, this is what ABC wants to do, and this is the show that they have, and for that role, I think he's doing a great job. And had it been Caitlyn, it would be different. If I had that opportunity, I would want to do it slightly different than Jesse, but at the same time, all I'm saying is, like, he's a likable guy, and I think he's doing his job, and
he commands a presence.
I got no issue with Jesse. I enjoy him as the host. You know, we sometimes make the mistake, and, you know, with Chris Harrison, you know, he was the host from the beginning of the show. And I think when a lot of people watched it, they saw him as like the spokesperson or the decision maker or the person who casted The Bachelor. He was just the host, you know.
Wasn't he a producer as well, though?
It didn't feel like he was the host. It felt like he was the Chris Harrison.
Yeah.
Like the Chris Harrison of the world who sometimes comes out and tells people what's going to happen.
I think Chris got producer credit, but like Chris definitely was never in any of those decisions for anything. And neither is Jesse. Neither was Caitlyn, and neither would have been anyone. That's not the job.
Yeah.
It's the host. They're the spokesperson, so they kind of relay the message that the decision makers have, but I think the expectation, it's more understood with Jesse, but with Chris, it was like he was there from the beginning, and Chris kind of talked as if he was that person and with that level of authority, but that's just not the reality of the situation.
Okay, so with the intensity that Jesse delivered this news, do we think that one of Gabby's guys is going to try to make contact with her, like that left? Do we think that it's just this Zach situation? What do we think?
If I'm a producer, I am definitely keeping in tabs with Jason and checking in and seeing, because it clearly seemed to be a real strong connection there, and I don't know what was talked about, but I'm working that angle for sure. We don't know how this conversation with Zach and Rachel go. There's a lot of possibilities of. Has
an engagement happened and then already ended? Like, there are so many.
And I'm trying to think of, like, in terms of teasers, the shots we haven't seen. We've seen a shot of each of them at what looks to be their final rose ceremony with just one rose left.
Yeah. We have seen Johnny already on a beach.
Yeah. But we've also seen a clip of Rachel in a short black dress sobbing and walking away. So we haven't seen her in that outfit yet.
I mean, who knows? That literally came in from week 2. I mean, it definitely could have been from week 2. Also, that reminded me of something. Just to kind of speak about how last night I was watching with Natalie, and there was a scene where it had to do with like Tino. No, yeah, it was Rachel was like on a date with Avon, right? And you know how on the date they were showing the date with Avon, and they'd keep cutting to Tino like worrying, right? And you know, as often people do when you watch a show, like you're on your phone, half paying attention. Like Natalie was just, you know, and granted, Natalie has only been watching The Bachelor since she's been dating me, so like. She's gotten into it, which is, I think, how most people watch it. And she looked up and she goes, wait, Tino, he can't actually see them, right? I'm like, no. But just the fact that she, you know, while on her phone, casually watching the show, even wondered if that was even possible, it made me realize, yeah, that's how people watch this fucking show. When I often get wondered why people get so fucking triggered or freak out, and when someone does some little thing, the audience is like, how dare you? How could you? Unbelievable. I said to Natalie, I'm like, honestly, like that was probably like a different day.
Yeah.
You know?
But they played that up with Erich too when she was doing the pool, when she was in the pool with Jason, and like they like took her like laughter and the splashing of the pool and put it over him on the balcony, like staring out, doing like his best Greg Grippo impression.
Yes.
And I was like, they're really playing into it.
Also, I really appreciate how Zach does B-roll. When you're in Fantasy Suite week, the final 3 or final, like when you're not on dates, you're doing B-roll, right? That's all these like contemplation shots. When you move into your hotel room, you'll have like, there'll be a camera guy and a producer, and you're like walking in to, you know, your room and looking at the room. And I watched Zach you could tell they gave him a beat. He walked in the room, paused, take a breath, like literally, and Zach did all the beats, and I'm just like, he goes, and, you know, and like without saying anything, with thought, what a great room, you know. And like Zach is just fully in character. I just thought it was really endearing.
Yeah, so stoic.
We also don't realize how much the music that they put underneath certain dates and certain conversations affects our reality. Because if you were to watch this with no music underneath, there's no like suspenseful music, there's no
or different music,
romantic music. It would change the entire context of certain conversations.
Because there was no music with Rachel and Zach the morning after, and that's why we were like, it's so freaking awkward.
And then the shot of their hands like limply holding each other.
Yeah.
If they would have played ominous, like villainous music when Rachel told Avon that she was falling in love with him, you would immediately thought of Clayton.
That made me scared.
The music would tell you this isn't okay. And that's all, like the music more than anything is the most triggering thing. It
triggers our emotions.
It's the biggest weapon the show has is the music they play, because the music tells you how they want you to feel
about a person,
how to feel about a situation or a person.
Final thought?
Yeah, final thoughts.
Jason was so hot playing tennis. Final thought is we need to address that. I think it is so hot when you watch someone who was like used to be good at a sport do it again. It was also very triggering because the first guy I dated in LA was teaching me how to play tennis. And I just thought we had to acknowledge how hot Jason was in his element.
Yeah.
I also wanted to acknowledge how many boat dates there were, considering they were just on a boat for weeks on end.
Also, they went back to the Vedanta. They went back to Puerto Vallarta, where they shoot Paradise, right?
Oh,
they're in Riviera Maya.
Oh, is the Vedanta? Maybe it's just the chain of. Oh, they
seen
have
one
more.
beach in a mall.
Well, the Vedanta must be in different parts of Mexico. Because
I'm
the
not an
Vedanta is
expert.
the hotel. It's the staging hotel for Paradise, which is in Puerto Vallarta. But so they're in Playa del Carmen, which actually is my favorite part of Mexico. You just said. Who said that?
I said Riviera Maya.
Riviera
but
Maya.
yeah.
Oh.
Wow, too many gorgeous places
I don't
in
know a lot
Mexico to
about
be.
Yeah,
Mexico.
shout out to Mexico.
I guess predictions. I predict that Gabby's with Erich.
Okay, I think everybody should really take a stab at the crazy plot twist. Everybody should try to come up with some really insane.
I think the craziness is the meeting. Well, I mean, I think we've already met them, but like Rachel and or Gabby's families meeting the guys.
Yeah.
That there might be something spicy there.
What if they bring Tino's parents back? They're only in the Riviera Maya. That's a short plane ride. That shit matters. Yeah, like I was in Finland. And if there was like drama with parents, it's like, I don't know, we were willing to fly someone else's parents to Finland for something we might not use. But down to Cancun?
Tino's dad pulls a reverse Barb and he's like, let her go.
No, but they've done that before. They've done it before and not aired it. I think they did it with JoJo's family.
Or bringing Tino's family onto the live finale special. That would, similar to...
Good call.
Oh my God,
Barb.
imagine Rachel's dad and Tino's dad. Staring hot death at each other.
I think Tino's dad is going to do exactly what Tino suggested, which is also like, again,
Come around.
Tino's parents were normal. It is a crazy situation. They were like, hey, this is nuts. Like,
They were the most real out of most parents.
They were real, but they were unwelcoming.
Yeah.
sure. But I'm just saying,
They're not bad people.
after filming, I think it's more believable that Tino's like, hey, I love this girl. Just, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I took a risk. We'll see. But she's great. So like,
And also, she picked me. Everything she was saying to you was
Yeah,
true.
so-
She picked me. So, let's
get on board. And I imagine his parents will. I wouldn't be shocked if I see them. I don't know if that's really the drama's going to come from. I don't know. I hear there's going to be some juice. I don't know. So we'll see.
Can't wait.
I know.
The most exciting episode of this entire season.
I hope it's not upsetting. The way Jesse was emotionally prepare yourself. I'm sure he was just doing that for
doing his
suspense, but a
job.
little part of me was like, oh no. If someone hurts, if Gabby gets hurt, I'm going to lose it.
I said this last week. Someone told me, and I don't know what, but they said, well, after what Rachel did. And I don't know what that means. I have no context other than that.
She ate a rose at the rose
I mean,
ceremony.
it might be that, but it was from someone who wasn't trying to sell me on anything. It was just more of an honest statement of I was like, okay, so I don't know what that is. And maybe it's nothing, and maybe that person could just be thinks it's a big deal. And this person doesn't know also how things are going to air. It's not a producer.
I'm intrigued.
Follow Jesse's advice, which was take some time, get yourselves ready, and prepare yourselves.
Also, I like that we've become numb to Jesse's unhinged CTAs. Where he's dump his ass. All your friends hate your boyfriend. Your boyfriend's probably cheating on you.
Your boyfriend's apartment probably has termites, so you should get out of there.
I kind of like it. Yeah, I'm on board.
Makes you listen versus the old ones where you're like, oh, yes.
And honestly, it might be the difference between someone putting an application and someone not. You're like, yeah, fuck this guy.
You're my boyfriend's apartment does have termites.
Kathy, as always, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Always fun to come in.
Always good to have you for the meaty, lot to break down episodes. Please let my audience know where they can find you. Enjoy your content. Update them on all your projects you're working on.
Yes. You can find me on Instagram at Cathy Kelley, on TikTok at It's Cathy Kelley. And I do have some announcements coming soon, so I'll have to come back when I
All
get
right,
them.
we'll come back when you do that. We have a whole season of Paradise coming, which you will be invited to recap.
A beautiful shit show, I hope.
I hear it's a mess.
Oh, good.
I hear it's a mess. Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget, Nate is with us on Thursday, and the update episode that you've all been waiting for, all things Ask Nick, Talking Office Hours, our Ask Nick updates, that will be on Friday. So 4 episodes for you this week. Be sure to tune them in. The Nate one, like I said, he made me cry.
What a guy.
It's a hell of an episode. Can't wait for you guys to hear it. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of discourse after. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching. But before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos, like our Mondays Ask Nick, especially if you're looking for some relationship stories and relationship advice, as well as our Wednesday interviews with your favorite celebrities and experts. See you next time.